So here we are for the combat theater gameplay portion of the Battle of Midway from HBG, and here are the carrier cards set up to specifications. I'm going to be using these colored discs in the videos because there's going to be a lot of editing as I bounce back from the carrier cards to the map and so forth. So that's going to try and help me keep it in line, which when I start doing all the editing, hopefully. If not, then it's a big failure. But either way, we've got our order of play, which is what we're going to start off with always. Phase 1, command operations. And I'm not going to go through reading these steps every turn, just this first turn. Check for victory conditions. Well, we're just starting. Determine your command tokens. So two things happen here. First, on every turn other than turn 1, you get 1 command token per carrier, and then the US gets a command token for the Midway Air Base. So you would put, like on turn 2, Japan has 4 carriers, US has 3 carriers, and Midway, so they're each going to have 4 in the cup, along with the Storm and the Metal. The first round, though, is a special order. You put in 2 and 2. That way, the US and Japan is guaranteed 2 movements with their command tokens. And then after these are drawn, then you dump the rest of those in, and then you draw until you get the Metal. So you're not guaranteed anything after those first 2, but they kind of set it up as a historical battle where the large Japanese Air Force is heading towards Midway to bomb the airfield. So they want to make sure Japan has enough tokens to carry out that battle. And then the US has 2 tokens. One we'll show here in a second. But if they wanted to launch planes, they could launch 2, because I think the airbase on Midway can only launch 3 planes per flight. So that is reduced from a carrier of 5. So if you wanted to launch 6 planes, you'd need both tokens. Or if we go on to 1.3 here on the first phase, determine reinforcements. So if the US would like to bring in a carrier on turn 1, then they're going to take 1 of these command tokens out of the pile. So now they would start the game with 1 versus the 2 Japanese. And then, of course, the remainder of the tokens, so they still could get a total of 3 more moves. Japan, if they wanted to bring in reinforcements, it takes out 2 tokens to bring in reinforcements for Japan. So it's a little harder for Japan to bring in reinforcements. But on the flip side, when you look at the map, the US carriers don't start on the map. So they're all reinforcements. So 1.4, set the carrier operation status. So here's your carriers. All the planes are below deck, and the empty boxes is a maneuver, launch, or recover. So right now there's no carriers on the board for the US, so they can't do anything. Japan has these 4 carriers on the board, so you have to determine whether you want to land the fighters that are on this carrier and this carrier. They are on combat air patrol right now with 1 fuel marker left. So if we wanted to land those, that doesn't take any tokens, but we have to designate that. Now these planes can't launch. So that makes me wonder, do you want to even launch from these other carriers? Because if you launch them in 1 group, it's only 1 token. So the other option is moving this group, because they have a patrol aircraft that is in the same sea zone and can easily spot them. So there's a big decision there. So what I think I'm going to do is we're going to recover this red fighter of the Kaga, and we're going to move the brown and yellow carriers, which is the Soryu and Hairu. I probably won't say those names all game long, because that's going to get me tongue-tied here before long. So your carrier status is now done. We're going to recover one, and these carriers are going to move. And that just depends if they get that third token too. Land aircraft, well, spot aircraft on deck. So like if we were launching, we would move our 5 planes up that we were launching, but no one's launching. So land aircraft, there is none to land, but you would do that. Now, phase 2, 3, 4, and the first 2 on turn 5 we'll do on the map. So that will be on the other camera that I have set up, and then that's where all the editing comes in based off the 2 cameras. So on the map setup here, we've got our 2 flight groups. We'll separate those a little bit from the 4 Japanese carriers with 1 fuel left. So their only real option is to hit Midway, especially since the U.S. didn't bring in a carrier. They could have brought in a carrier over here and been okay, because these spotting aircraft can only go 2. So the only way they would get in trouble is if they popped in, out here in 7 or C-Zone 4. So the U.S. has a couple bombers loaded with bombs. The patrol aircraft around the board, here's the one I was talking about that's already on the 2 Japanese carriers. I think I'm going to change my flight or my carrier operations to recover, so that we don't have a mixture of recovering and launching aircraft on the next turn. So we can recover both of these, then we can launch the next turn, because we know the U.S. is bringing in 1 or possibly 2 carriers on turn 2. Alright, so we go to our handy dandy chart, because I filmed this once already. This is the second take, and I went right from explaining the what's on the map here right into combat or drawn tokens, and I completely forgot about the phase 2 conducting search operations. Always follow the order of play and look at it, because even after 7 or 8 games, or however many that I've played, I can't remember at this point, you just have to follow the list. That's the only way to do it. It saves a whole lot of grief. So Japan goes first, so they don't launch in any. I don't have any set to launch from the carriers. So I've got 2 of these search planes that can fly 2. So we'll go into C-Zone 4 and C-Zone 7, knowing that the U.S. carriers coming next turn, can only come into these 5 zones. So we're going to be right there on them. The U.S. would now go with its 2 search planes. So we're going to do a search on this one here on the bottom, because we can use these bombers to attack them if we want to. We're going to try and search this carrier group here. Whoops, these carriers got stuck together. I put magnets on the carriers so I can use them in the other games. We've got 1 more patrol aircraft up here, which will fly to the middle in 14, and we'll just hang out there. So now you've got 2 searches that are possible. Japan has nothing to search for, so Japan would go first, but they don't have the option. So let's put the dice tray out here. We'll do this first one. So the U.S. would have 2 dice versus Japan's 1, and it's basically highest dice wins, and a tie goes to the search aircraft. So it's a 9 for Japan. So that is not good news for the U.S. Now their planes that launch off Midway don't technically have anything to go to, and now this search aircraft, patrol aircraft, has to return to Midway Island where it came from. I will say, before we go any further, I did miss 1 U.S. patrol aircraft that is actually at the seaplane base on Midway. So it could launch there and go 2. So I'll do that right now. The last search mission is down here at the bottom in C-Zone 37, and it's the same. 2 dice for the U.S. versus 1 Japan. And 2 11s, so they are no longer hidden. So you remove the hidden marker from the task force marker there, and that is considered spotted. So if there's extra US dice rolling or tokens drawn, these bombers can hit there. And actually Midway, if this guy fails, Midway still has an option to attack these, because the cruisers are worth victory points as well as protecting your islands from invasion. Alright, so that is the end of phase 2, the search operations. Execute orders. We've got the 4, this is the special turn 1, so there's 2 Japanese and 2 US. So I have some extra of these task force and carrier divisions, so I'm using them to hold my flight groups of planes, so that you can see how easy that was to move as opposed to grabbing all those individually. Japan's, so we knew that was going to happen, no surprises there. So we got 2 US tokens, and we're going to launch 3 dive bombers from Midway for sure. And we want to put them in a C zone where we can hit multiple targets if we have to. So that's that one that has a fuel of 3. I think I'm going to wait on that and see if we get a token here after these, because I can get all these planes, which would be 2 more dive bombers, and then the A-26 torpedo bomber, which is a medium bomber that flies or drops torpedoes or bombs, but it's armed with a torpedo, so that's how we launched it. So we're combining into a flight group so that next turn 1 token is all that's needed to move that and attack. So that'll be good there. Alright, so now we add the remaining tokens and we draw out until the medal occurs. And we get Japan. Alright, so we're gonna move this, and now it is back to hidden. Whereas this one failed its dice roll, so it has to return. This one still has the option of moving here and finding it again. So that is good news for this fleet anyway, because it was about to be attacked regardless. Alright, so the next one is Japan. So their last move is going to be moving these 2 battleships and 4 destroyers into C Zone 2. Alright, what do we got next? We've got the medal. So that is it. The US did not get to move these bombers as I thought they might. So I'm going to put all these back in the cup because there are no carrier or airfield. Well, I'll leave one out. Well, it's very unlikely that the airbase at Midway is going to be knocked out in 1 turn. It has a hit of 5, but there's also 5 anti-aircraft guns that you can take as casualties in place of hits on your airbase. So very unlikely that the rolling is going to go that well. But we will go over to, well, you know what? I can probably slide these over here and do the battle board right here in the middle of this map. Alright, so we've got 2 US fighters. They're going to go on, they're on combat air patrol there. We don't need the fuel marker because once you fight, you're out of fuel, so we'll throw that off the board. So they're going to defend that. Well, I've got two flight groups here. So flight group 1, and we'll put this dice tray right here, comes in at 7, which is right here in front of the 1 fighter. And then the second flight group comes in at 8, which unfortunately, oh no, that is another one. 8 is here. So the 8 gets to come in and do nothing on turn 1. So your first round of combat is this 1 US fighter versus 4 Japanese fighters and 6 bombers. So it's a simultaneous battle, just like any Axis and Allies battle. So here's the US defense. That's a 9. So they defend at 5, they attack at 5. So the Japanese fighters, there's a 2, 3. So they shot down 1 U.S. fighter. All right, let me pause just a second and see where my sheets are with the planes, because I want to make sure that that fighter is, yeah, air attack at 5, yes. All right. So the airfield has 5 victory, or 5 hit points. All right, so all that was thought correctly. All right, so the second round of aerial combat, we could go here, and actually we probably will, because he's probably toast anyway. So we're going to bring in all of our planes into this second loop so that we get 2, 4, 6, 8 fighters on that one. So the U.S. fighter rolls, and it's a 10 to no avail. Here's 4, we'll do 4 Japanese first. They just need 1 hit, and there's a 2, 3, and a 5. So 2 U.S. fighters gone, defending Midway. And another option too is if the U.S. would have gotten a token on that second round of tokens, they could have moved those 2 fighters here and joined this flight group to go in after that. That was another option as well, which would have saved them at least for a turn. So now we've got all these planes that come into this last final zone, and in this last final zone is, and I should have had that set up first, I need to look at the US setup chart here, because I can't remember if it's 5 or 6. Oh, I don't know where it tells me. Never mind, I have the appropriate number on the Midway Island. So now all I need is the airfield in case it takes any hits. So the airplanes are now done. They do not get to attack the airfield, although they should be able to have a strafe value, I would think. Alright, so my camera shut off. It's the older of the 2 cameras. I think it doesn't have as long on the video side, so I'm going to have to try and remember that. But either way, where we are now is all of the planes have made it through the first 2 rounds of combat, and they're going into the 3rd round, where they attack the airbase and the anti-aircraft guns. So these 6 attack bombers attack at a 4, and then these 6 dive bombers attack at a 6. So we will throw, actually we've got, so the green will be the 6, and the attack bombers will be the 4. Alright, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's terrible. That is terrible. So what the U.S. can do is take off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they lost 5 anti-aircraft guns, no damage on the airbase, and that is the end of the battle. So we're going to take our bombs off since we dropped them. And that guy never had a bomb, so I don't know what happened there. We'll put these back on the carrier ops card so that we remember there's only 1 anti-aircraft gun left. And then our planes go out here. So they have attacked, so they are now out of fuel. Alright, so we can get all this off the board. And that was there. Everything looks like it's in order. Alright, so now we go on to Phase 5, return to base. So the only one we have here is this scout plane or patrol aircraft that failed. It has to go back to Midway because that's its base. These planes don't return until the return to base phase next turn, because technically they still have 1 fuel. Because the next spot on phase 5 here, burn fuel. So they would go to no fuel. These that have 3, they go to 2. And these that have 0 or 1 go to no fuel. So they have to land next turn. There's no way around it. And all these planes will have to come back that are on those 2 flight groups. That is the end of turn 1. So we will go over to the carrier flight ops, and we will set that and start turn 2. Okay, as you can see, when we brought in our reinforcements, the 2 U.S. carrier groups came in C zones 6 and 17, and they are exactly the same composition. 1 carrier, 3 cruisers, and 4 destroyers. The next carrier group is a little different. It has 1 less cruiser and 1 more destroyer. So there are your U.S. 2 tokens that have already been moved. The first time we played this game, we weren't taking them out of the cup like we were supposed to, and we were trying to bring them on because we weren't following the order of play. We thought we just knew, and sometimes we wouldn't get to bring on reinforcements. And then, of course, after getting everything in order, thanks for hitting the tripod, we figured that one out. It's just one of those things, you know, it happens when you start playing a game and you think you know how they're supposed to be and you don't check. You get in trouble. Alright, command tokens. What's left in the cup here is 2 US and 4 Japanese, and of course the Storm and the dreaded metal coupon. Alright, so we have got, first up, Japan. Alright, so their obvious move is they're going to launch. See? I didn't follow the order of play. So scratch. Alright, so phase 2, conduct search operations. So launch and move patrol aircraft. Well, the US, well, Japan goes first, so they're going to go 1 into each one of these carrier groups. We're going to go into the southern carrier group. And then this one's going to track down this group again here. And now we roll, and Japan rolls first. Get all these dice out of the tray. In this first group here, Japan will have 2 dice, the US will have 1. And 10 to 3, so they are successful, the hidden comes off. Same thing for this second group. Oh, but the US rolled a 1. Well, that was close, so they are no longer hidden. So now we'll switch dice, bring in another US for this group. 2 US dice versus 1 Japanese. They are successful, so they are no longer hidden. And then finally the same down here in C zone 36. 12 for the US, so they are not hidden anymore. Alright, so let's take that off. That's all for the rolling that we'll see there. Alright, so execute orders, phase 3. Let's draw from the cup. And in the cup, we've already used 2 US, so there's 2 US, 4 Japanese, and then there is the metal and the Storm. And Japan, so they will launch. And I'm going to just move these fighters for now, and I'll set them up here to show where they're going. So we don't want to go to Midway since we've got these carriers. Or we could go. I'm going to set them where they can go to either or. Because if they lose contact with these, then they can still bomb Midway. So they're going to fly from here and go 1, 2, 3. So they'll set up here. And I'll need to get another one of those markers out for my next flight group here. I say that I'm not going to send all those fighters because I want to leave I want to leave 1 back here on combat air patrol. So they have 3, and we need a 3 from over there. I should have set up all my stuff on this side of the table for here. All right, so since they're spotted, well, next turn the US may, no, they can't launch till next turn. So I don't really need fighters. Well, now I'm guessing, second guessing myself here. So next turn US will be able to launch, and then the turn after they'll be able to attack. These will take 1, they'll be landing. Yeah, I'm gonna need these planes back here, I think. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put my planes from that other carrier group on CAP here, and we'll leave these 3 in that group there. Sorry for all that indecision on camera. Next chip, Storm. So the Storm always starts here in 3. So we'll put a Storm Squall there. And Japan, so they will launch their brown group. So they will go here with their 3 fighters on combat air patrol. And all their bombers will come over here. And they need a 3. And I'll put them on a marker here in a little bit as well. So there's the 2 Japanese tokens, each flight group there. Oh, Japan again. All right, so since this group down here is spotted, we're going to move again. We're going to come up here, so now they are hidden again. But remember, this guy does not have to return to base because he did not fail his mission. At least that's how we interpret the rules. And, oh, Japan again. I don't have any more planes to launch. So we'll have to move this carrier, that group there. Now, the problem here is what we're getting into is Japan's getting a lot of tokens. These ships are approaching, which is going to help protect the Japanese carriers because they could go naval combat the U.S. carriers, and that never works out too well for the U.S. And the next token is U.S. So they can take these bombers and try and drop bombs, which I think they will. So they'll try and do an attack here. And that will be a special attack because there's no anti-aircraft fire that can hit the bombers. I'm going to choose not to send my fighters because I don't want them to have to land next turn because I'm going to need them on combat air patrol. So they're just going to make their bombing run on the ships, and we'll go from there after that. Oh, you know what? Let's not do that because what I forgot, I've got this group here. So they are coming in, and I probably will now use those combat. Good thing I put them on combat air patrol. I've completely blocked that one out. Now if I get another US token, those bombers will join the action as well. And I get the medal, so they do not. So that is how you stands. We are going to have one battle here. And that's going to be it because everything else is good. So let me set that up and we'll get back to it. Alright, so the battle board is set up. I've got some dice to help me remember the attack values here. So we're going to roll a dice to see where this flight group comes in. And I guess I should have added more room for the dice tray. There we go. Alright, so They will come in at 2, which is good for them. That means they're coming in down here. There's a destroyer there. So the destroyer has 2 anti-aircraft shots at 1. And of course it's a 12-sided one. Nothing. They do not wish to attack because a destroyer gets you no victory points. So they will slide into this C zone, or this combat zone for round 2. And I have the option of sliding this fighter back. These are all 1s, and this is a 5, so I think I'm going to take my chances there as Japan. So Japan rolls, gets a hit. We're going to lose that torpedo bomber because it attacks at a 3. Alright, but it does get to fire back, so there is 6, I believe, at 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 at 1. They did not get it, so that worked out nicely. In the meantime, this fighter would have moved here, and this fighter would have moved here. So now, for the 3rd round of combat, all the fighters are going to go in there. And now we've got 3 fighters at 5. And they get 1, so we're going to take 1 ship off. Now the fighter, or the dive bombers 5 back at 5 at 1. Nothing. Now we've got the anti-aircraft, and the carriers here have 2 different values. The Akaga is 2 at 6, so that'll be the orange dice. And the Akagi is 2 at 4, so that'll be the green dice. And we've got, that's a 9. Oh, crust! Their anti-aircraft did nothing, so this isn't good. Alright, so that is 2, 3, 4. There's 4 left. Now, on these ships, one of them is 4 victory points, the Akagi. So they're going to go after the Akagi, which is this one. Alright. So here's the bad news. The U.S. dive bombers attack at an 8. The hit points for the Akagi is 4. So if all 4 hit, Japan loses a carrier. 2 hit. Alright. So we're going to put 2 markers on the Akagi. Now for the remainder of the game, the Akagi can only launch 3 planes at a time. Alright, so that is the end. The bombs go away. And now I will set that back up on the map and we will continue from there.